Hello, I'm Laura Shero, and you're about to watch a wonderful conversation I had with Ruairí McCourt. He's a trade unionist, originally from Ireland. He lives in the UK. He's a socialist, just like I am. He's a Marxist, just like I am. And we both stand with the Jewish people and with Israel. Unfortunately, we didn't realize that my internet service had gone off for about 7 or 8 minutes. So there's a missing portion. It's not too much, but I hope you enjoy. If you like this video, if you like the content of my YouTube channel, please like the video, make a comment, and please subscribe. It's free. Thank you. Hello,
Okay,
I'm
it's
Laura
rolling.
Shero,
Hi.
and I'm here again with Ruairí McCourt. This is episode 1 of Warriors Battling Racism, and I had the pleasure to first meet Ruairí about a year ago when he introduced himself to me. Actually, it may have been closer to 2 years ago. And he introduced himself to me. Ruairí is a working class Irishman who lives in the UK, and he introduced himself to me by showing me this photograph of his great uncle. Ruairí, would you like
Yeah,
to say something about your uncle, please? Anything you want to say?
sure. That's my Great-Uncle Sean McCourt. And that picture was probably taken in England in the late 40s, early 1950s. I'm presuming, yeah, he's the guy in the light colored
Yeah.
raincoat holding a rifle. And with his friend, they were out hunting. He was that type of guy. He was kind of like my mum described him once as a man's man in the sense that, hunting and shooting and fishing and all that sort of thing that was his thing. But also he also described himself as a socialist as well. And that was kind of unusual because he came from a family of quite conservative Irish Catholic people. And but he described himself as a socialist. And my connection to I never really knew him. I mean, I must say he died when I was only about 4 years old. But I came to know him through my dad. My dad absolutely idolized him, you know. He was My dad worshipped him. He thought he was a great guy. And it was like, how I found out about this. There is a connection with Israel, by the way, but which I'll come to shortly. But there was an old British Army khaki kit bag in our house back in Derry in Northern Ireland. And I asked my dad one day, what's that old British Army piece of kit doing lying around in our home? And he said, well, oh, that's my Uncle Sean's British Army kit bag when he was in the army. And I said, oh, really? Didn't know he was in the army. And he said, oh, yeah, yeah, he was in the army. He was stationed in Palestine. And in 1947, 48, as things really, the lid came off everything, as we know. And basically, yes, he was in the Royal Ulster Rifles. He was a British soldier there. His view at the time was, I mean, it was getting pretty hot there because you had the Haganah and the Irgun who were fighting the British, and you also had Arab paramilitaries who were also fighting the British. So the British Army, if you like, were kind of they call it keeping the peace, but actually, they had an active role in there as well, and trying to suppress the Jewish liberation movement, which is what I feel it was. And my great uncle Sean, came to feel that that was the case as well. He became very disillusioned with his role as a British soldier while he was there. And I
Why
think there
is
are
that?
parallels.
In
Well,
what way?
because
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think because it was a fairly nasty and a campaign. There was a lot. It's not pleasant being shot at by anybody, but especially if you go there and you're there to suppress the people who are trying to be free. Because let's be honest about this. This is a couple of years after the Shoah, after the Holocaust.
That's
You had
right.
a wave of immigration trying to get out of Europe to come to what was Palestine, Israel, and the British government were preventing this. They were turning ships away of Jewish immigrants, and of course, Jewish people, the population of North Africa and the Middle East, had also been expelled by those Arab governments. So there was a huge influx of Jewish people to add to the fact that there was an indigenous Jewish population there anyway. So my uncle, in this sort of maelstrom of chaos and war, he became very disillusioned with the role of the British Army, and he saw his role as an oppressor of the Jewish people,
Yeah,
and he deserted the British Army.
he
He got
deserted.
out.
So how did he
He
get out
deserted.
of Palestine?
Well, I don't. This is the thing I'm trying to piece together. I can only presume that he had an Irish passport as well as a British passport, because I think when you join the British Army, like any army, they will take your passport away, so you can't. You're there for the duration, if you like. And I think he must have. I'm still trying to piece together. Unfortunately, a lot of people who knew him are no longer with us. My father's passed away. My aunt Eileen is still with us, so she will be his niece, Great-Uncle Sean's niece. So I will be asking her next time I'm back in Ireland, which will be the next few months, to try and see if she knows anything about the history. Because he came back to Ireland, you see, and he lived across the border, because Ireland then as now is partitioned, and he lived in the Republic of Ireland, afraid of coming north, so he could be arrested as a deserter by the police. And I think what happened is that there was an amnesty in the late 50s, so he came back home. But he spent about a decade away. So that my interest in Israel came through that family history of it, and I was enormously proud that my great uncle Sean did what he did. I mean, it's viewed as a dishonorable thing to desert any army, really. But to desert it on the grounds that you think what you're doing is wrong and is
It was
oppressing people
honorable. It was
in my
honorable.
book,
For
that's a
you, it
brave
was
thing to do,
yeah.
to be honest. When you think that the consequences are you'll be arrested and thrown in jail, or maybe even worse. And I know there are certain instances as well of Irish members of the British Army who actually went over to the Haganah and fought with what was the IDF, became the IDF. My uncle didn't quite do that, but
Mhm.
I've uncovered at least three instances of Irish soldiers who deserted the British Army and joined the Israeli liberation movement.
And then with
So
your uncle, didn't
brave
he?
men in terrible times. And but yes, I'm very proud, and the fact that he did what he did is there's no sense of shame. In fact, I
It,
salute him,
you
really.
have every reason to be proud. Do I remember correctly that you told me that he had to basically stay under the radar the rest of his life?
More or less, I think, as I said, there was an amnesty given to people who had deserted during the Second World War, during various campaigns. But yes, he stayed in the shadows for at least a decade after the
Yeah.
1948. Um,
So,
but he then became a migrant worker, and he went to work in England and stuff like that, building the motorways and various things. Because he used to send
yeah,
back photographs of himself, not
yeah,
like that one you've just shown me. That's him hunting somewhere in England. So
that's a
yeah, I
good
mean that's my
photograph.
connection with Israel. It got me thinking about it. And then later on, when I went to, I moved. Yeah, that's a great photograph. Later on, when I moved to London, in England, I I basically I worked with Jewish people. I got to know. I lived in a part of North London, Stoke Newington, Stamford Hill, um, and Finsbury Park, and there's home to a very large Jewish community, that part of North London, especially Stamford Hill. We've got a Hasidic Jewish community, especially,
That's right.
but also I was I got to know when I went on the Islington Council, one of my very good friends, and I've just reconnected with them a few months ago, in fact. Daniel Bonner was Jewish, and a proud Jewish man, and he became a Labour councillor like me. We're still good friends. And later on, when I lived in Tottenham, again, another Jewish part of what was a big Jewish part of North London, Sheila Peacock, who was a Labour mayor of Haringey, a Jewish woman, always going to Israel to check in with her relatives, and we became big friends. I don't know, there just seemed to be a connection. And when I work in housing, and there was a housing association set up to house Jewish people called Agudas Israel. And I won't mention any names, but let's just say the guy was called Solomon, right? And he used to have the most incredible sense of humor, and I just connected with him. He was a Hasidic, he was an Orthodox Jew, but he had the most incredible sense of humor. And he used to say to me, Rory, it's like the Jews and the Irish, we're like each other, big families. We believe in families,
Yeah.
and we've had to, and that sort of like we've had to put up with a lot in our respective histories, but we get through it because, of course, like it's there's you've heard of the Battle of Cable Street in 1936,
Yeah.
I guess, when anybody on the left, wherever you are, will know about the fact that Mosley's black shirts invaded Jewish areas of East London to try and, basically injure and harm the Jewish communities there. And it was the Irish dockers who stood shoulder to shoulder with the Jewish community and fought them and
I
kept
didn't
them
know
out,
that, Rory.
you
I
know.
did not know that.
No pass around. Well, this is the thing. It's not in common currency, but you ask any London Jewish man or woman, and they will tell you about it. They will say, yes, the Irish stood with us. They don't forget it, So,
I was just
but I used to
thinking,
go. Another thing is, I used to go. Yeah, sorry, Laura.
no, I was just thinking you
It's
have this
it's one of those.
natural comfort and alliance with the Jewish people, and especially
Oh, very
working.
much so. And it's our histories are very much entwined, and I'm proud to have Jewish friends. Jewish colleagues. Even my barber in Tottenham, this an old guy. I mean, this is 20 years ago, so I was like in my 30s, and he must have been in his 70s then. He's no longer with us. I heard he passed away, but his name was Alfie, and born in the East End of London, a Yiddisher boy, as he called himself. I am a Yiddisher boy. He was great. He used to teach me these Yiddish swear words. I've
Uh-huh.
forgotten them all,
We
thankfully.
are, we have a gift for swear
But
words. I
he
will
used
tell
to
you.
say to me, oh goodness me, yeah, yeah. But while he was, shaving my hair and all that, Alfie was go, hey, where are you from? Where are you from? What's that accent, son? I go, I'm Irish. He said, the Irish have always been here, like us, the Jews, Now I look around this place and there's Albanians and there's Sudanese and all my people have moved away, but there's still some of us around. And he said, like, the Irish and the Jews, we had to put up with a lot of shit in our time, but
Yeah,
we've always fought back. And we're still here.
we're still here. We're still here, Rory.
Where's
You're,
Caesar? Where's the Roman Empire? They're
yes,
gone.
that's
We're
right.
still here.
That's right. So, your story,
This is Guy's sense of humor.
your story, and I've told you this, our internet is unstable. I hope that it fixes itself. Your story rang a bell with me because my family my father and mother were both blacklisted during the McCarthy witch hunt in the 1950s. And I knew blacklisted working class people. They were all working class, the ones I knew, who had to go into hiding. So your story about your
Yeah.
uncle, your great uncle, immediately rang a bell for me, and I was so grateful when you sent me the photograph of your uncle, Uncle Sean. Um, and I was just thinking that the other day you posted this picture of Pete Seeger with what's the name of the group?
Yeah.
McKeat? McKeat? Mesquite?
That family is a very famous Irish folk family
Yeah,
called the McPeaks in
yeah,
Belfast,
yeah.
and they're very influential. And Pete Seeger, of course, that's him in Belfast visiting them. So it would have
With
been
the
like,
banjo.
a kind of a him with his banjo, him paying homage to what he would have seen as authentic voices of working class folk music in Ireland. And
Yeah.
that's the type of guy he was. And in fact, funny enough, the McPeaks were their influence in the American folk scene. I mean, they'd never left Belfast, These were people who were but they recorded a few LPs. Um, like for instance, this one, McPeak Family.
Yeah.
That's basically they've got some classics on here. But but the influence Bob Dylan. When Bob Dylan was playing Slane Castle in the 1980s, 1985, a young guy called Bono from U2 were on the bill as well as and they came back and Bono came backstage and one of Dylan's conversation was basically, oh, have you heard of the McPeaks? Do you listen to the McPeak family? And Bono thought they were like, a young independent, indie band, like a punk rock band or
Oh,
something. He didn't know who the McPeaks were.
hmm.
Bono didn't have a clue who they were. And Dylan was going like, you don't know the Francis McPeak? You never heard of this guy? Um, but you see, that's where the influence of that's a famous photograph, and then the influence of that band went far and wide. And I think I told you that Roger McGuinn is another famous son of Chicago, the lead singer of the Byrds, recorded "Will You Go, Lassie Go" along the Blooming Heather, which was a McPeak song. And
Would you like
yeah, so
would you like
basically,
to?
that's sorry,
No, I was going to
that's
say,
sort of like,
would you like to play one of their songs? Do you have a?
I don't know if I've got the equipment here. I've got a little speaker. Let me think. Where are we? Bear with me. Yeah, let's see if we can.
I didn't know Pete Seeger, but I my dad sang on the
Can you hear that?
not really, not very well. We'll do it another time. Um, my dad,
Yeah, technology is not quite with us, but yeah, Pete Seeger. I mean, for somebody like me who's on the in the labor movement, Seeger is a hero, to be honest.
yeah,
He
he
was the
was
man
a
who
hero.
popularized a lot of stuff, which like Alan Lomax. Lomax is slightly more controversial with his field recordings of black blues musicians
I
and
know.
all of that. But we won't get into that at the moment. But Seeger himself, as you know, Laura, is singularly a giant in American folk and therefore in world folk. For me, he's up there with Woody Guthrie probably.
Well, he
Um,
was blacklisted too. And about
he
Woody, I
was.
was just going to say that I didn't know.
This is one of
Oh yeah, there you go.
one of my favorite Pete albums is this one at the
Yeah,
Carnegie Hall in New York, and it's such an uplifting because it's all full of civil
it's
rights
uplifting.
songs
His
like
songs were almost always
yeah.
uplifting.
If
Um,
you miss me at the back of the bus, Oh Freedom, Who Killed Davy Moore, A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, he does a Dylan song, and of course We Shall Overcome, and of course Guantanamera,
I
which is
used to sing, if you
the
miss
album,
me at the back of the bus, you
If You
won't
Miss
find
Me at
me
the Back
round
of the
there.
Bus.
Come on over
Yeah,
to the
Little
front of the
Boxes.
bus.
Yeah.
Listen,
Um,
I'll be sitting right
so
there.
I love all that stuff. I
That
love all
was a
that stuff.
civil
And
rights song.
yeah, and of course this one here by Woody is
Yeah,
Sacco and Vanzetti, which is
yeah, that's right.
the famous ballad about the two Italian anarchists in Boston who were framed and judicially murdered for a robbery which they didn't commit. Um,
And they were
so
here organizing for the 8-hour day. That
this
was
is
what
it.
they were that was what they were
That was
doing.
their
Workers were
crime.
working 14, 15 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week, dying in their 30s. And so his crime was trying to organize workers to
Trying to
demand an
organize the
8-hour
workers.
day. Yeah.
Yeah. And the
Or
bosses wouldn't
actually,
have
I
it, so
mean,
they
the
framed
Sacco
them.
and Vanzetti. I was thinking of Joe Hill, but they were all doing that. Um, so
Yeah,
one
Joe
of the
Hill.
things I wanted to say about Pete was I didn't really know him. I was in a protest at when I was about 21, 22. That it was a sit-in. So it lasted about a week,
Yeah.
and Pete just got on a plane, flew to Chicago, and I'm in the hallway with a bunch of students, sitting in protesting. And all of a sudden, I hear this banjo in this voice, and he go around the corner, and there's Pete with his head thrown back, belting out song after song. He just came to support us. He wasn't making any money off of it. And although I didn't really know him, my dad sang with Woody Guthrie a couple of times, which wasn't really a big deal. Woody liked to have 20 people on stage with him, all strumming and playing and singing songs. And I mentioned this the other day on my Facebook page, but that Pete and Woody in the 1930s traveled in their old rattle trap car around the southern part of the United States, and they'd get out of their car at a migrant worker camp. And all these workers were working long hours for pennies
Mm.
an hour, pennies a day, dying young. And he and Woody would get up sometimes to stay and stand on the top of the car and start strumming and playing Union songs. And then the sheriffs would come with their guns and they get in the car and drive out of there and go another day to another migrant worker camp. And they did this for a long time. And that's how Pete and Woody got to know each other. So I thought I'd mention that. That
Yeah, no, that's amazing, really, and it was very dangerous to do that as well because those goons, the police or whoever, hired thugs would come along and break up union meetings. And what I was thinking, I was one of my favorite novels is The Grapes of Wrath by Steinbeck, and
yeah,
there's parts of that where he details that where they're trying to organize in the farms and stuff like that, and these thugs come along and beat everybody up and kill people effectively. So it's like.
they would kill
It's a
people.
bit,
That's right.
it's the struggle is real. The struggle's still there.
Of course it is.
It's one of those things, isn't it? La lucha continúa, as they say. Struggle continues.
When my
Yeah. So
when my
yeah, I mean, all
dad,
that sort of stuff. I mean, so I've got all these records. This is a good one. Woody Guthrie, Hard
fantastic,
Traveling.
and his
Uh,
guitar, didn't he say his guitar said, "This machine kills fascists"?
Kills fascists. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think Seeger had something in his banjo similar as well.
yeah.
But yeah,
Fantastic.
inspirational people, really, And it's just a shame I never got to see Pete Seeger because he lived a long life,
He did. His
and
late 90s, I believe.
well, this is it, yeah, So it is a shame, but at least his legacy in some way lives on. I think really, as long as there's people like you and me, Laura, who will want to talk about him and listen to his music and all that. So yeah,
In
good
terms of
stuff.
union organizing, I was just going to say that when my dad first, he was blacklisted almost 8 years, and he was finally able to get a job where the FBI didn't show up within a week or two and get him fired. And he was tried organizing. It was as a truck driver, and he was in the Teamsters Union. They were very corrupt, and he tried to organize
Jimmy
under the
Hoffa.
radar, to get rid of
Yeah.
Hoffa. And 2 or 3 years into the job, I don't remember, I was just a kid, but someone came up behind him and took one of those big hauling hooks and drove it into his back. And all I remember as a child was his being in the hospital for a long time. The person who did that almost killed him. So it was a very serious thing to
Yeah.
fight for, just to fight for decent working conditions. And it's a serious thing, um, that we Jews are always having to fight for our right to exist, you know. Um, to me, they're not separate.
Yeah.
And I also would just like to say that I'm also, like you, a socialist and working class. I'm both. So I just wanted to put it out there that that history carries carries on in me. I have a knee-jerk reaction to injustice. I have had all my life. I have a feeling you do too. You have that knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, I'm from that sort of background as well. I mean, I've always been. I mean, my dad was a shop steward in the Irish Transport and General Workers Union when he worked in Courtaulds, which is a textile factory in Derry, and he was an organizer there. And I guess that's sort of when I came to work in London. I mean, the jobs I've done have been white collar jobs, working in offices and stuff like that. But I was in the union I first joined was a union called NALGO, National Association of Local Government Officers, and they're now Unison. They've all merged. And but I've been a member of the Transport and General Workers Union, Unite, which is now, and I'm currently a member of Unison. I've been a shop steward, a convener, a branch executive member. Um, and that's my first involvement. Before I became a member of the Labour Party, I was always active in trade union politics and fighting the Conservative government and policies that were decimating communities. So that's what, and I guess that comes from your background as well, because my dad was the same way. And basically, yeah, I still am of that way because I'm an elected official here in Rother District Council. I'm the cabinet member for housing. So trying to build more homes to house
Yeah,
people is
yeah.
a big concern for me because homelessness is one of those things which I feel passionately in a rich society should not exist. People living in cardboard boxes under bridges and stuff like that is something that is it just offends me, and it's something that we shouldn't see. And so therefore, yeah, the struggle does continue in whatever way. The struggle at the moment, of course, is in the town hall rather than the workplace, but it's still the same thing. And
You
I
know, we
feel very
have a lot of
passionately about.
homelessness here too. I'm in Chicago, just tremendous homelessness.
Yeah,
And the subsidized housing has is drying up. A lot of those
yeah,
subsidized housing buildings are being turned into condominiums. So, I wanted to also ask you, you know, um, there's a lot of racism directed at Jews in Ireland.
yeah,
And I would like to hear your thoughts on
yeah.
that. I would like to hear that.
Yeah, it's well, for a start, it's disgraceful. It's shameful that Ireland, I think, has been described as one of the most anti-Semitic countries in Europe. I think there's a legacy there about the Catholic Church as well being anti-Semitic, because back in the 1930s, Ireland was one of the countries which, when Jews were fleeing Nazi Germany, they didn't accept, a quota, if you like, but Ireland disgraced itself when Adolf Hitler killed himself. The Premier of the Irish state, Eamon de Valera, sent condolences to the German ambassador in Dublin. Incredible,
He was the
unbelievable,
only
really.
the only
That
uh, the only president to do that, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I believe so. It was a real outlier to do that. Was incredible and shocking sort of thing to do. Where this anti-Semitism, I mean, I think there's also, especially in Northern Ireland, they view, and it's erroneous, I think, but they view parallels with the Palestinian, what they see as the Palestinian Arabs having the same struggle as themselves. Now, this is completely fictitious because, as we know, I've explained, don't have to talk to you about it, Laura, but Israel's right to exist is sacrosanct as far as I'm concerned. It's the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people. So therefore, any claims to that land, which says from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, for me, that is an exhortation to commit genocide against the Jewish
to
people.
kill
Because where are the
every
Jewish people
last
going to
living
go?
Jew.
Exactly. It's in Hamas's charter.
Absolutely.
It's part of their mission, not just in Israel, but every Jew around the world they
Everywhere.
want to
Yeah.
kill. Incredible, really. But to go back to the Irish thing, I'm a supporter of the Ireland-Israel Alliance, which is, a group fighting anti-Semitism in Ireland and, trying to expose um, the terrible discourse of anti-Semitism, which is leaked into civil society. And, most politicians are quite comfortable. We had a president, right? President Higgins,
That's right.
the Holocaust Memorial Day in Ireland, celebrated by the Irish Jewish community in Dublin. Um, he was invited along as the president of Ireland, but the chief rabbi of Ireland pleaded with him, please
Didn't know
don't
that.
mention the current conflict.
I didn't
Please
know
don't
that.
mention what's going on. This is about the Holocaust in the 1940s. And what did Higgins do? He disregarded that and started ranting and raving about Palestine and what the war crimes of Israel and so on and so forth. Absolute disgrace, really, to
I'd
have
like to
so
just
little
interrupt you.
respect.
I would like to
Sure,
just say that I sent President Higgins a letter. I don't know if you know that. And I just
I
said,
don't know, but the man's a
Dear
disgrace.
President Higgins, go F yourself. Sincerely yours, a Jewish woman. That's what I
Well, exactly. That's fair play to you for doing that because honestly, the anger and the lack of the total disrespect that you have for Irish Jews by being invited along to an event like that. and then sort of gaslighting them about what's going on in Israel and Palestine. It's just unbelievable. Talk about tone deaf, but it's just offensive. For me, that's anti-Semitism. When the president of our republic can come out with stuff like that, that's how deep the problem is. It's normalization. It's like a normalization of anti-Semitism, really.
And the
Um,
same country where an earlier president sent condolences when Hitler, no, I think
yeah,
didn't he commit suicide? I think he committed suicide.
yeah, he shot himself
He shot
apparently.
himself.
But you know, and the sad thing about this as well is that the parallels between the Irish struggle for independence and the Jewish struggle for independence are there. And there was there was a Jewish member of the IRA. There's a famous guy. I'm not sure about his name, but he's a proud Jewish man, but he was also an Irish nationalist. So he was fighting for, as he saw it, the freedom of Ireland against the British Empire. And it's like one of the key figures in the Jewish early Jewish state. I can't remember the name. Was it Begin? Somebody like that. But his code word as part of the Haganah underground resistance was Michael. And that was chosen because he idolized Michael Collins, who was the director of
Oh, I
intelligence in
didn't
the
know that.
IRA fighting the British in 1920. And the Haganah based their liberation struggle on the tactics of the Irish 25 years before. The Irish had the parallel parliament, the Dáil Éireann. They had their own
Mhm.
court system. They just ignored the British structure of government and founded their own parallel. And Israel did the same. They had their own courts, the Knesset, everything in the background, underground, but it was there. It was a model that they based on the
Before
Irish liberation
1940,
struggle.
you're saying before 1948, they had a
Yeah,
Knesset.
before
They already had a
1948,
Knesset.
absolutely.
I didn't know
Because they
that.
actually had, basically they had when the British, the Haganah became the IDF straight away. They just switched on as a pinko, a socialist. I want to cut through all this and I want to unite with people around common interests and not, dance around these issues. They have to be confronted. We have to be,
They have to be
upfront about these
confronted.
things.
In terms of
Yeah.
racism, the accusation of racism, I have several friends, neighbors who are African American veterans of the Civil Rights Movement, and all of them have passionate feelings about the Jewish people and the how we were part of. I was in the Civil Rights Movement at the very end of it because I'm younger than most of the veterans. But what I'm hearing is what I'm beginning to hear from some of those who are more open with me is this concern that you can be accused of being racist against Arabs if you try to expose slavery in Africa, the Sudanese, all over parts of Africa where kids, young Black kids and women are being kidnapped and sold and abused. And you can't expose that for fear that you're going to be accused of racism against Arabs. And you see what I'm saying? I mean, one of my neighbors,
Oh yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. I definitely. I mean, there's a big focus in the West on the transatlantic slave trade. African Americans, um, 3 or 4 million or whatever over a certain period, and that was horrible and an awful thing that can't be defended in any way. And in fact, to the credit of the United States, they fought a war to end that. But nobody focuses on the slave trade that went the other way from North Africa into the Arab countries and was
right?
equally as horrible, in many
And
ways,
it's
probably
still
more horrific.
happening. It's still
And
happening.
it's still happening. Modern slavery is an issue. It's an issue. There's no doubt about it. And we only saw about like when ISIS overran most of Iraq in 10 or so 15 years ago. The Yazidi community were massacred. Um, but there's evidence there that a lot of the Yazidi women weren't killed. They became sex slaves because it was viewed as the booty, the bounty of war, if you like, to take all these women and do what you will with them. Um, Terrible, really. And in
And that's
fact,
what
I
happened
know I
to.
know these. One of my barbers now is a Kurdish guy, and he's I don't know if you know that much about the Kurds, but they are largely a secular Muslim nation. They
Yeah.
haven't got a state as such. But I said to him, like, when I used to live in London, we used to see posters in Kurdish people's homes, and it was PKK, the Kurdish Workers' Party. They're a communist organization. Um, they were just, I said to him, like, I just support the PKK. I said, I love the PKK. He says, I love them. And he goes like, well, what about the Palestinians then? He said, fuck the Palestinians. I'm fed up with those bastards.
I
They had
may have
everything on a
to I
plate for
may have
them.
to mute that word that you just said,
Sorry.
Willie.
That's what that was he got really animated. The Palestinians, we've been fighting. And he says, and another thing, it wasn't the Americans or the British who beat ISIS. We beat ISIS. The Peshmerga is the armed units, all women units of the
I
Kurdistan
know.
Workers' Party. He said the Peshmerga are women. Our women defeated these bastards,
And none
and
of them are wearing hijabs, by the way.
no, they were wearing combat
They're
fatigues and
certainly
berets.
not
It looked
wearing
like you.
burqas.
No, they're definitely not. They basically looked like, your standard typical 1960s guerrilla movement with their fatigues and berets and the red stars on their. I have a lot of time for the Kurdish people. Their struggle's a real struggle. It's still ongoing. Obviously, Öcalan, their leader, declared a ceasefire last year, and we'll see how that works out. But and of course, the Kurds are big supporters of Israel. I know
Yeah.
Israel saw them as an ally fighting fundamentalist Islam because they're um,
You
a
know what you were
secular group.
saying about what happened with the Yazidi women?
Yeah,
There was this outrage about it, as you know. On October 7th, a lot of Israeli women were raped and raped to the
yeah,
point where they died from broken pelvises. And what really angered me was there was nothing about it. First of all, there was nothing about it in the press, but there was nothing about it in the feminist movement. No outrage, or
yeah.
none that I heard of.
Shocking.
And I don't even know if
Yeah.
today any well-known feminists are have made a statement about it, even now, almost 2 years later. So
It's
the way,
appalling.
so this phenomena of raping women to destroy them and to destroy the culture is not only in African parts of Africa with the Yazidi women, but also with Israeli women, with
Yeah,
those Jewish women and
absolutely. No, I couldn't agree
and the
more. And it's
hostages.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's absolutely appalling what happened, and the world turns a blind eye to this. It's funny, like you could have 500,000 people marching in London about freedom for Palestine. And there's actually a real genocide going on in Sudan, where several hundred thousand people have been killed in that
that's right.
terrible civil war. Nobody's marching in the streets of London about that. What about the fate of the Uyghurs in China, who are oppressed in concentration camps by the Chinese Communist Party? Nobody's marching in the streets about that. The Rohingya in Malaysia, a Muslim minority that was terribly set upon by the Buddhist majority. Nobody's marching in the streets about that. So I call out and I question the authenticity of these people who call themselves left wing, and they ignore these real genocides, but focus almost entirely in the world's only Jewish state, a small state that has been fighting for 80 years for its very existence. Every generation, the Jewish people have had to defend themselves against their Arab neighbors. And but all of a sudden it's about Palestine and the oppression of the Arabs. It's just nonsense. The whole thing is a complete. It's the world turned upside down, Laura. It really seems to me like we've gone down that rabbit hole like Alice in Wonderland and come up with, these strange leftists who claim to be,
They're not,
against oppression.
in my
They're
opinion,
not. They're
leftists.
fakes.
They're fakes.
Yeah,
They're fakes. It's
I agree.
and in terms of the whole Palestinian thing, it's a con. That's how I see it. It's a very well or organized and strategized con to appeal to liberal and left-wing people, especially white people. But you know, our time is almost up, and it's
Yep.
been such a pleasure talking with you. It's just such a delight and a
And
pleasure, and I'm
no,
honored to
and
know
with you,
you.
Laura, it's been absolutely fantastic, and it's a real pleasure for me. And sorry for ranting and my expletives there, but that was my Curtis Barber who says it how it is.
I enjoyed it immensely, and I think all the people who will watch this will too. Thank you so much for spending an hour with
No,
me.
you're very welcome. You have a good day, and I think
Thank
I'll go and
you.
get a beer now.
Okay.
Take care. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.